One of my favorite dishes is going to be risotto. However, who's got time for risotto at home? So I'm going to show you a quick substitute, and that is going to be a creamy orzo with Parmesan today on Countdown Cooking with John Gruber.
May I have your attention, please? It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
At Cooking with John Gruber, I do like to focus mostly on uncluttered, simple recipes. Now, this countdown series is going to just speed everything up, and so I try and cook everything as fast as possible, just because if you've made a beautiful roast, you don't really have time to be cooking all of your side dishes. So steam up some vegetables and then make a delicious side dish. Now, orzo, which I'm going to show you here, is a small rice-sized pasta. Each one of the pastas do have their own personality. And here's a plug. I do have a pasta course where I called Cooking with John Gruber and Friends, Pasta and Provisions, and all of the pasta's shapes and sizes are made by, well, all of the shapes and sizes of different chefs, because they all have their personality as well to teach you the different pasta shapes and sizes and how to make them. So obviously go to Cooking with John Gruber and you can check that course out. It is wonderful, it is fun, and I have a lot of chefs that have helped me throughout the years to create this course. So it's like kind of like a lifelong lesson, and I keep adding to it all the time when I discover something new. Today on Countdown Cooking, however, we are going to be making a creamy orzo. And again, it's a simple rice-shaped pasta, a great risotto substitute. That's one of the ingredients. The other is 3 cloves of garlic and then a cup of Parmesan cheese as well. And then we're going to just put in a little bit of chicken stock. Did not mean to show you the label on that, but it's just a basic fat-free chicken stock that we're going to use to steam everything together. So let's go to the stove and I will show you what we're going to do. This 4-ingredient recipe. In a large saucepan, or if you have a stock pan or even a Dutch oven, you're going to want to melt a little butter or just use a little oil, and you're going to be adding your garlic, and you're just going to be cooking this for about 30 seconds over medium heat. Once that butter is melted, and your garlic then is going to be so aromatic. Again, if you've got neighbors and the windows are open, or in your apartment building, they're going to be so jealous of this, just because your house always smells like delicious food. Again, it's one of those things where I find that the aromas really make a meal. So when they smell really good, they get everybody hungry, their appetites are going, and then you're going to be having the delicious meal. Everyone's going to be hungry and they're just going to love what you're cooking, mostly because it smells really great. So there's 2 steps to this process. Again, there's the garlic, like the on heat section, and then there's off heat to this recipe. The on heat, again, is just to kind of saute the garlic a little, and then we're going to be adding the orzo into this mixture too, as it's just going to just absorb some of that butter. Now it's 2 tablespoons of butter that I use. You can also use 2 tablespoons of any other oils that you wanted instead of butter. So if you're not eating butter, like saturated fats, then I would probably recommend maybe like an olive oil for this recipe. And this just smells so good. I just want to eat it as it is now. I do love garlic. If you do not like garlic, the best thing about this recipe is you can take your 3 cloves of garlic, which is about 2 tablespoons of garlic. You can just replace it with maybe 2 tablespoons of onion, 2 tablespoons of shallot. If you don't like that at all, you can then do anything you want. Also with the Parmesan, if you are staying more like along the vegan aspect of it, I would say use your oil instead of butter, of course, or a vegan butter, and then you can also then just finish it. Instead of with Parmesan cheese, you would use nutritional yeast. So those are some of the ways that you can adjust this recipe without this recipe being a fail. You can obviously, again, replace chicken stock with vegetable stock. It is super easy to work with, and I know I had mentioned shrimp as the protein to go with this, but you can use any protein whatsoever. You can use pork, you can use beef, you can use even just mushrooms if you wanted just to go mushrooms. Okay, so I'm just going to dump this orzo right in the pan. And again, I'm just kind of going to use the orzo to absorb some of that butter. That garlic is wonderful. Now I'm just going to like saute this for about a minute. Okay. And I don't think it's going to brown too much, but if it does have a little browning, that is absolutely fine. It almost makes it like a, not a pilaf, but definitely like just a little like rice-a-roni sort of product then if you were to get some browning to it. I hate using store-bought items or packaged items, but those usually look really good when they have a little toasting to them. So if you toast the orzo, it's not going to ruin the recipe whatsoever. So set it, forget it, do it as quick as you want. You can turn up the heat if you need to move on. And then we're going to just saute this, like I said, for a minute, and then add some stock. Oh my goodness, this smells so amazing. It really does. I just wish I could waft this into your house as well. I've, like I said, toasted the orzo with the butter for about a minute, maybe a little longer because I'm cooking this on lower heat so I can teach you how to do this and then also be able to film. So I don't want this to get too brown. I just wanted that quick toasting. And again, if you make some color to it, that's fine. If you do not, that's also okay. Now I'm just going to be mixing in 4 cups of broth, and I chose the chicken stock for this. Now 1 cup of the dried orzo and 4 cups of stock should be enough for 4 servings. Wow. Okay. And so they do, I would say I recommend to kind of like stir relatively often on this, but you can then bring up the heat a little bit and cook it till it's tender. So you will need to take a few pieces out and try it as you're cooking. That's one of the best ways to see if it also needs salt and pepper. I wanted to catch it at this point in time because as you can see, the liquid is starting to thicken and the orzo is certainly swelled. It's slightly tender already, so I know it won't be long till I am going to be taking it off the heat, but I wanted to catch it in time before it was too late. So that after bringing it up to a boil, I simmered it for about 15 minutes. Orzo is almost tender already, so your stock just needs to slightly evaporate before we mix in the cheese once I take it off the heat. The orzo is finished, and the best way to say it is when you're cooking it on the stove, you're going to see bubbles come up from the bottom of the pan, and those bubbles will let you know when the orzo is cooked. And as far as texture goes, I would say that your orzo, the stock kind of turned into sort of like a gravy, so you're looking for a nice coated gravy sort of texture and consistency with your orzo. Again, if you can see it over the steam, because it's still very hot. And now we're just going to be mixing in the cheese. I'm going to do just a little cheese at a time so I get it nice and mixed in there. And all I did when I was cooking this is I added a little bit of pepper, like black pepper, fresh ground. I did not add any salt, knowing that the cheese is going to add a little bit of a salty consistency or taste as well. So I didn't want to over salt it. I'm going to add all the cheese and then see how much salt I might need to add. Okay, so that was half. And we're just going to stir in that cheese, and it's melting wonderfully in this. And your orzo is coming out nice and creamy. Again, that stock made like a gravy, and the cheese is just going to thicken it up a little bit. But just keep stirring this until your Parmesan cheese is no longer stringy and everything looks creamy